A long time ago, a deacon lived at Myrká in Eyjafjörður. He was in love with a girl named Gudrun. She lived on a farm on the opposite side of the valley, separated from his house by a river. The deacon had a horse with a grey mane. He always rode this horse. He called it Faxi. A short time before Christmas, the deacon rode to the farm where his betrothed lived. He invited her to join the Christmas festivities at Myrká and promised to fetch her on Christmas Eve. Some time before he had started out on his ride, there had been heavy snow and frost. But on that very day, there came so rapid a thaw that the river became impassable. The deacon had crossed it earlier on the ice, trusting in its firmness. Now the floods rose, and huge masses of drift ice were whirled down the stream. When the deacon left the farm to return home, he was deep in thought. He did not notice the change at first. When he saw the state of the river, he rode along the bank until he came to a bridge of ice. He spurred his horse onto it. When he reached the middle, the bridge broke beneath him. He was drowned in the flood. The next morning, a neighbouring farmer saw Faxi grazing in a field. He could discover nothing of the horse's owner. He at once suspected what had happened. He went down to the river. There he found the corpse of the deacon drifted to the bank. The flesh had been torn from the back of his head. The bare white skull was visible. He brought the body back to Myrká. It was buried a week before Christmas. Up to Christmas Eve, the river remained so swollen that no one could cross between the banks. But on that morning, it subsided. Gudrun was utterly ignorant of the deacon's death. She looked forward with joy to the festivities. In the afternoon, Gudrun began to dress in her best clothes. Before she had quite finished, she heard a knock at the door. A maidservant opened it. Seeing nobody there, she thought the night was too dark to see clearly. The moon was hidden by clouds. She said, "Wait there till I bring a light," and went back inside. The moment she shut the door, the knock was repeated. Gudrun cried out from her room, "It is someone waiting for me." Gudrun slipped only one sleeve of her winter cloak on. She threw the rest over her shoulders hurriedly. When she opened the door, she saw the well-known Faxi standing outside. Beside him stood a man she knew to be the deacon. Without a word, he placed Gudrun on the horse. He mounted in front of her. Off they rode. When they came to the river, it was frozen over, except for the rapid current in the middle. The horse leapt over the black stream. At that moment the deacon's head nodded forward. His hat fell over his eyes. Gudrun saw a large patch of bare skull gleam white amid his hair. A cloud moved away from the moon. The deacon said, "The moon glides, death rides. Seest thou not the white place in the back of my head, Gudrun, Gudrun?" Not a word more was spoken until they came to Myrká. As they dismounted, the man said, "Wait here for me, Gudrun, Gudrun, while I am taking Faxi, Faxi, outside the hedges, the hedges." When he had gone, Gudrun saw an open grave near her. She was half sick with horror. She ran to the church porch. She seized the rope. She tolled the bells with all her strength. Someone grasped her. He pulled so fiercely at her cloak that it was torn from her. Only one sleeve remained, the one she had managed to put on. she saw the deacon jump headlong into the yawning grave. He held the tattered cloak in his hand. The earth fell in over him. The grave closed to the brink. Gudrun continued ringing the bells until she roused the farm. But the deacon was not at rest. That night, he came again from his grave. He tried to drag her away. The struggle was so loud that no one could sleep. This happened every night for a fortnight. A neighboring priest came to sit on the edge of her bed. He read the Psalms of David to protect her, but nothing availed. At last, they sent for a man from the north country, skilled in witchcraft. He dug up a large stone from the field. He placed it in the middle of the room. When the deacon rose that night to torment Gudrun, the man seized him. By uttering potent spells, he forced him beneath the stone. There he lies in peace to this day. There once lived a priest at Húsavík. His name was Ketill. Finding the churchyard rather crowded, he dug up a great many coffins. He said that they were no use where they were, and that they only took up room. He used the coffins for firewood. Some time after this, in a kitchen, 3 old women were sitting round the fire. Some of the coffin planks were burning there. A spark flew out. It set fire to the dress of one of the women. They were sitting close together. The flame quickly caught the dresses of the other 2. The fire burnt so fiercely that all 3 women were dead before anyone could come to their assistance. The next night, the priest saw a man come to his bedside. The man said, "Do not endeavour to make room in the churchyard by taking out our coffins and burning them. You see that I have already killed 3 old women. If you go on in this way, I will kill many more. I will fill up your graves for you, quicker than you will like." The priest took the warning. He burned no more coffins. He saw no more ghosts, and no more old women were killed. Some years ago, 2 friends were conversing together on various subjects. Among other things, they spoke of corpses. "If ever I happen to find a dead person," said one of them, "I shall do my best and bury the body." "For my part," replied the other, "I shall take no such trouble, but pass it by like any other carrion." Some time passed. One day Ketill, for that was the name of the latter, was out walking. He found the corpse of an old woman lying in the road. He passed by without paying the slightest attention to it. The next night, after he was in bed, the old woman appeared to him. She said, "No thanks to you for your neglect of me, for you did me neither good nor evil." She looked so horrible that Ketill sprang out of bed. He grasped a large knife that lay near him. He chased the spectre from the house, cursing and swearing and crying, "Shall I stab you, you old witch?" After this, he went to bed again and fell asleep. Then he saw the old woman a second time. She was holding her lungs in her hand, all clotted with blood. She made as if she were going to strike him with them. Ketill jumped out of bed again with the knife, but before he could reach her, she disappeared. When he had gone back to bed and fallen asleep once more, she came to him a third time. She made as if she would strangle him. For the third time, Ketill leapt from his bed with the knife. Again, he failed to reach her before she vanished. From that time on, the ghost of this hag followed the unhappy Ketill throughout his life. She pursued him with her wrath and spite. At last, she drove him into an untimely grave. Whether Ketill's friend ever found a corpse, and whether he carried out his charitable intentions, this story does not relate, nor does it so much as hint what reward he might have received for his pains. A certain boy and a certain girl, whose names this tale does not tell, once lived near a church. The boy, being mischievously inclined, was in the habit of trying to frighten the girl in many different ways. He played tricks on her, again and again and again. At last, the girl became so accustomed to his mischief that she ceased to care for anything at all. Everything strange that she saw, and everything strange that she heard, she put down to the boy's tricks. One washing day the girl was sent by her mother to fetch home the linen. It had been spread out to dry in the churchyard. She went there with her basket. When she had nearly filled it, she happened to look up. She saw, sitting on a tomb near her, a figure dressed in white from head to foot. She was not alarmed. She believed it was the boy, playing one of his tricks as usual. So she ran up to the figure. She pulled its cap off and said, "You shall not frighten me this time." Then she finished collecting the linen. She went home, but to her astonishment, the boy was already there. He was the first person to greet her at the cottage. He could not have reached home before her without her seeing him. Among the linen, when it was sorted, there was found a mouldy white cap. It belonged to no one. It was half full of earth. The next morning, the ghost, for it was a ghost that the girl had seen, was found sitting again on the same tombstone. It had no cap upon its head. No one had the courage to address it. No one knew how to get rid of it. So they sent to the neighbouring village for advice. An old man said that there was only one way to avoid a great calamity. The little girl must replace the cap upon the ghost's head. This must be done in the presence of many people. All were to stand perfectly silent. A crowd gathered in the churchyard. The little girl went forward. She was half afraid. She held the cap in her hands. She placed it upon the ghost's head and said, "Are you satisfied now?" The ghost raised its hand. It struck her a fearful blow. It said, "Yes, but are you now satisfied?" The little girl fell down dead. At that same moment, the ghost sank into the grave upon which it had been sitting. It was seen no more. A farmer once had a son named Sigurdur. He was so ill-tempered that no one could live in peace with him. One winter, a stranger came to the farmer's house. His name, too, was Sigurdur. He asked for shelter for the winter, and the farmer agreed. The stranger did little, except play the flute, and the farmer's son became so fond of him that he cared for no one else. In the spring, the stranger went away. After that, the young Sigurdur grew tired of life at home. He left the farm. He went in search of his beloved namesake. From house to house, from parish to parish, from district to district, always asking one question: "Have you seen Sigurdur?" At last he came to a priest's house. They told him that a man named Sigurdur had just died there, and that he lay in the church. Sigurdur asked to be allowed in. He entered the church. The coffin was open. He sat down beside it. He intended to keep watch there all night. At midnight, the corpse of Sigurdur rose, for it truly was his friend. It stepped out of the coffin and left the church. But the living Sigurdur sat still. He waited. At dawn, the corpse came back. But Sigurdur would not let him return to his coffin. Not yet. First, Sigurdur demanded to know how the dead man had spent the night. The corpse pleaded. Still, Sigurdur refused. So the dead man said, "I have been looking over my money." "No," replied the other. "You must first tell me where your money is." "In one of the corners of the family room." "How much is there?" asked Sigurdur. "1 barrelful." Then the youth asked again, "Did you do nothing besides counting your money?" The corpse denied it, but Sigurdur pressed him and threatened him. At last the corpse answered, "Well then, I have killed the priest's wife. She's just had a child." "Why did you commit such a cruel crime?" asked Sigurdur. "Because," said the corpse, "during her lifetime, I tried to seduce her, but she always resisted my advances." "How did you kill her?" asked Sigurdur. The dead Sigurdur answered, "I drove all the life in her body into her little finger." "Can she not be brought back?" asked the youth. "Yes," said the corpse, "if you can untie the thread that is around her finger without shedding any blood, she will come back to life." "And now," said the corpse, "I truly must get into the coffin." Sigurdur allowed it on one condition. The dead man must promise never to try to move again. The corpse promised and lay down. In the morning, when the sun was fully risen, Sigurdur left the church. He entered the family room. Everyone was deep in grief. The priest's wife had died in the night. No one could explain her illness. Sigurdur asked permission to see her. It was granted. He went up to the dead woman. He found a thread around her little finger. Carefully he untied it. No blood was shed, and he urged the life back from the finger into her body. The woman sat up, alive and well. Then Sigurdur told the priest about his night in the church, and to prove his words, he showed the money hidden in the corner of the family room. The priest thanked him, and after this, Sigurdur became just as beloved as he had once been hated. Once upon a time, in a certain churchyard, some people who were digging a grave found a skull. A knitting pin was stuck through it, from temple to temple. The priest took the skull. He kept it until the next Sunday, when he was to perform the service. When the day came, the priest waited until all the people were inside the church. Then he fastened the skull to the top of the porch. After the service, the priest and his servant left the church first. They stood outside the door, watching carefully every person who came out. One by one, the congregation passed. Nothing strange happened. When all had gone out, they looked inside once more. The only person remaining was a very old woman. She was sitting behind the door. She was unwilling to leave the church, so unwilling that they were forced to make her go out. As she passed under the porch, 3 drops of blood fell from the skull onto her white headdress. She cried out, "Alas, Murder will out, at last. Then, she confessed. Long ago she'd been compelled to marry her first husband against her will. She killed him, with a knitting pin. Afterwards, she married another man. She was put on trial for the murder. Though many years had passed, she was found guilty. She was condemned to death. The brothers left Reynistad late in the season. Snow had already settled in the highlands. They travelled south to buy sheep, then turned back toward the north. They were accompanied by 2 men. They carried animals, supplies, and what they owned. While in the south, the elder brother offended a priest. Later, people remembered only the words spoken. "You will hunger. You will not reach home before winter." The journey north began too late. Snow covered the paths. Wind removed all signs of travel. They continued. Days passed, then more days. Nothing was heard from them. During the winter, their absence was noted. In spring, a traveller found their tent in the mountains. Inside were bodies, preserved by the cold. Later, others reported that fewer bodies remained. Some had been moved. Far from the tent, a severed hand was found in the snow. Nearby, a horse lay dead, its throat cut. It was assumed the animal had been killed when there was no other way forward. Of the brothers, no trace was found. Their sister began to dream. In her dreams, her brother said they lay together beneath the snow. Later, he said they were hidden in stone. People spoke of this quietly. It was said that someone had found the bodies, taken what was of value, and concealed the dead. A man skilled in seeing was consulted. He said the brothers lay beneath a heavy stone in a lava field. Beneath the stone lay a piece of paper marked with runes. He said the bodies would not be found until the paper had decayed. Years passed. The land remained unchanged. Long after the journey was forgotten, the stone was lifted. The bodies lay where they had been described. The paper marked with runes beneath the stone had decayed. There were once 2 friends. The elder of them was a drunkard. It happened that the younger was betrothed to a girl. He invited the elder to his wedding feast. But before the time came, the drunkard died. The wedding ceremony was performed. The feast was held at the church in which the dead man was buried. That night, the bridegroom dreamed. He dreamed that his friend came to him. The dead man spoke in sorrowful tones. He said, "Pour out 1 keg of brandy into my grave, for my dry old bones are thirsty." The next morning, the bridegroom rose early. He went to the grave. He emptied a cask of brandy onto the earth above his friend. After that, he never saw the ghost again. In earlier times, and even not so very long ago, it was common to keep watch over the dead. When someone died, a light was kept burning through the night. A person sat with the body, waiting, watching, until morning came. This was not done for comfort. It was done for a reason. Once, a wizard died, a man known to be dangerous in life, and worse in death. After his death, few were willing to watch over his body. At last, a man was found, strong, steady, a man who did not fear what cannot breathe. For most of the night, nothing happened. The watcher sat quietly. The candle flickered beside the corpse. But shortly before dawn, The flame went out. The room fell into darkness. Heavy, thick, cold. At that moment the dead man sat up, and in the dark he spoke. Pleasant is the darkness. The watcher did not flinch. That makes little difference to you, he said. Then he spoke a spell, one meant to bind the dead. Now the earth is bright, the day has already begun. That was the candle, and you are cold, and cold you shall remain. The watcher sprang forward. He forced the corpse back down, flat upon its back. The body did not resist. The darkness passed. The first light of dawn touched the window, and the rest of the watch remained quiet. Kjartan Olafson is buried at Borg, in Myrká. His grave lies beside the church, stretching from north to south, longer than most. On the grave lay a thick pillar stone, carved with runes. Time had worn the inscription down. Some of the marks could no longer be read. The stone itself was broken into many pieces. People said this was the work of a farmer at Borg. One summer, as he was building a smithy, he needed strong stones for his forge. So he took Kjartan's gravestone, broke it apart, and used the fragments to build his hearth. That evening the farmer went to bed. He slept alone in a loft above the house. His servant slept below, in the common room. During the night the servant dreamed. A man came to him, tall, broad, and powerful in build. The man said only this: "The farmer wishes to see you as soon as you rise." When the servant woke, he remembered the dream, but thought little of it. Morning came, and the farmer did not rise. After a while, the servant grew uneasy. He went up to the loft and asked if the farmer were awake. "I am," said the farmer, "but listen to what I dreamed." He said that in the night a man had come into the loft. He was tall and strong, well-formed, imposing. He wore dark clothes, but his face could not be seen. The man spoke. "You did wrong yesterday when you took my stone and broke it in pieces. It was the only thing that kept my name alive. Even that you would not leave to me. Tomorrow you must take the pieces of my stone and place them back upon my grave, exactly as they were before. But because you broke my stone, you shall never again set a sound foot upon the earth." The farmer said that as the man spoke, he reached out and touched his clothes. The farmer woke in terrible pain, and as he woke, he thought he saw the man leaving the loft. "I believe," said the farmer, "that this was Kjartan himself." The servant did as he was told. He returned the stone piece by piece to the grave, but the story says that from that day on, the farmer was never well again. From that day on, he never walked freely again. At the farm of Muli, in Thingeyjarsisla, there once lived a priest named Thorleifur Skaptason. He was a learned man and a powerful preacher, known for his knowledge of hidden things. It was said that he understood the language of ravens. One autumn morning, Thorleifur set out from home with one of his household men as a guide. Their destination was the trading station at Húsavík. They travelled with 2 pack horses loaded with goods and planned to return the same night. The road was long, but easy. There were no real dangers along the way. There was only one place of note: a shallow mire brook called Myrká, where water spread out in thin streams from the bog into the river Laxá. They left early. At the start of their journey, they stopped to say a travelling prayer. As they prayed, a raven flew low over the priest's head. It cried out harshly. Thorleifr looked up from his prayer. He shouted after the bird, loud enough for his companion to hear. "This is a lie you speak, foul thief. This will never happen." When the prayer was finished, the man asked what the raven had said. The priest replied calmly. The raven said, "You, priest, will lie dead tonight in Myrká, and I will peck out your eyes." Thorleifr dismissed it as worthless nonsense. His companion agreed. They continued on to Húsavík. They completed their business. They began the journey home that afternoon. As dusk fell, the weather thickened. Mist gathered along the river Laxá. The light faded. When they were already far on their way back, the priest spoke again. "Go now to the 2 farms beneath the mountain slope and carry out my errands. I will drive the horses slowly along the river. When you are finished, ride straight across and meet me on the path, so there is no delay." The man did as he was told. They parted. After completing his errands, the man rode on. He expected to catch up with the priest. Soon he came upon the pack horses. They were moving quietly along the path, but the priest was nowhere to be seen. Alarmed, the man turned back. He followed the river downstream. At last, he reached Myrká. There, he found the priest's horse. It stood still in the shallow brook. Beneath it lay Thorleifr Skaptason. He lay on his back in the water. The stream was so shallow that it did not even cover his face. And on the priest's body sat a raven. One of his eyes was already gone. Once, as was his custom, the Bishop of Skalholt was visiting the churches of Hirtasidur in Borgarfjörður. All that day the bishop was unusually silent. He rode apart from his men, lost in dark thought, speaking little, urging them to hurry as much as they could towards the place where they were to camp for the night, the low-lying ground by the ford of the Vitar, near the farm of Bjarnastadir. When they reached the place, the men began pitching the tent, but the bishop did not help them. He walked alone, back and forth across the grounds, his head bowed, as if listening for something no one else could hear. When the tent was raised and everything made ready, the servants went to tell him. The bishop sighed deeply and said, "The hour has come, but the man has not." At that very moment, they saw a rider approaching, a man spurring his horse hard, riding as fast as he could straight towards the river. The bishop turned at once and went to meet him, calling out that he wished to speak with him. But the rider seemed driven by a wild urgency. Although the bishop warned him that the river was dangerous, not fit to be crossed, the man answered only, "Do not delay me, I am in a hurry." When he saw this, the bishop commanded his men to seize the rider and bring him into the tent. They did so, and immediately the man grew violently ill. His strength failed him. His breath came in gasps. It seemed at every moment that he would die, and yet he could not. He struggled as though death were already upon him, and still it would not take him. Then the bishop gave another order. He told them to bring water from the river Vitar and give it to the man to drink. The moment the river water touched the man's lips and tongue, he died, After that, the bishop spoke to his men. That morning, he said, he had heard a message in the language of the raven. Death had sent a call for this man. He was destined to drown in this river. That was the reason, the bishop said. The man could not die, not until he had tasted the water that had been appointed for him.